Inside at last.
Welcome, fellow Teffers, to Inside at Last, the one and only thief-dedicated podcast. My name is Alex, and we start the new year with a new season and again with a very special guest. And if you think stealth rocks, you should watch Stealth Dogs on YouTube. So, Stealth Dogs or Alex, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I was so glad when I stumbled upon your YouTube channel, which you can explain in a minute, where you analyze stealth games, that I was like, oh yeah, I always wanted to talk about this. But Psychosis and Next, they are not so much into stealth games. And then I found you, and yeah, it was a perfect match for me. But enough from me. Yeah, please tell me or tell us who you are, maybe where you are, maybe how old you are if you want to, and what are you doing on the internet, which is so important to me and to others.
Oh, well, thank you. My name's Alex. We have two Alexes today.
It's amazing.
I talk about stealth games on the internet, and I occasionally upload videos to YouTube. And I have a channel which is dedicated to all things stealth game related. So whether it's Thief, whether it's Tenchu, whether it's Metal Gear, whether it's anything else, I'm interested in stealth game mechanisms and the choices that developers make when they implement stealth-based mechanics. So yeah, that's more or less my deal. Oh, I'm in my 30s. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Me
think
too. It's
okay.
amazing. Alex being in the 30s is great.
It's okay, is it? I guess that it was bound to happen at some point. Being on a podcast and talking about Thief. So when I was invited to this one, I thought, this is it. This is the time to rise to the occasion. So here I am.
Yeah, thanks. So it's a premiere for you. And it's the first time, I think, that it's only just two people in this podcast. But as we figured, we are both talkers, so we will fill the time. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, this is not totally focused on the Thief today. I hope you Teffers can get along with it, but of course we will put in Thief once in a while, so we don't miss the main topic of the podcast in general. But yeah, before we start that, it's about Thief, and you stumbled upon Thief some while ago, I guess. So please, could you tell us, what was your experience? How did you stumble upon it? Where did you find the game? And what did you think of it?
Well, this is actually one of the things I have to thank my brother for, because we're both gamers, and we have been gamers for a long period of time, like a lot of people in their 30s. And he bought Thief 2. I'd never heard of Thief prior to any of that interaction with Thief 2. But immediately what caught my attention was, oh, you don't run around shooting everything. No, you have to be sneaky. You have to put out lights and sneak around guards and knock them out and not kill them. And then you have to move things around. And I guess Thief 2 was kind of difficult for me to grasp as my first proper stealth game. And this was probably when I was about 14 or so, maybe a bit younger. So going from mission to mission for me and my brother was a bit of a struggle, because we hadn't come from Thief the Dark Project. We hadn't played that game, so we were learning a lot of the new mechanics and the systems of Thief from scratch. And we got stuck on what is the mission called? It's the one where you have to go and find Cavador in the Lost City.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and we were just stumped. Oh, and by the way, we didn't know about quick saving. So whenever we failed a mission, we were playing Thief 2 in the most hardcore way we possibly could. We didn't save our game. We tried to do each mission from start to finish, because again, this was very like first person shootery sort of mentality.
Yeah.
coming from games like Quake and Doom, where you just start again. So this was one of those things where we kind of gave up. And then I saw that there was Thief the Dark Project in the shops, and I got that, and I played that from beginning to end. And then I went back to Thief 2 and finished it. And that was really my baptism of fire, trying to finish Thief 2 The Metal Age without quick saving.
That's amazing.
Which didn't work out well for me. It didn't work out well for me, and I couldn't. And as soon as I found out about quick saving, of course, that made the game a hell of a lot easier. So it was definitely an interesting experience going from there, and that's really where the fascination with stealth games began, I guess, with Thief. So it's appropriate that I'm here, even though I talk about stealth games in general.
That's a very interesting story, especially with that quick saving thing. Before you go on, one question: am I good hearable because I changed something in my audio settings?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, so no, just with the background noises so that they are minimized. So sometimes it Fs up the voice. But the thing is that I think the first Thief, when I played it, I didn't know about quick saving either. And this game was much harder even, in my opinion. And then it was Alt and S and Alt and L in Thief 2 to save, which was unusual.
Wow.
I love the combination of now I'm totally used to it, and if it's possible in other games, I put it on those buttons as well. But back in the days, it was I think F10 and F12. It's an interesting thing. I didn't know about it either when I played the demo, and so every time I needed to go into the menu and save there, and I just recently found out because of Psychosis or Nex. They showed me something, and I saw that you could rename the save game state. I didn't know that, so I always had to remember like what time was behind the save state, and so it was this and was that, and yeah.
One of the first things I did with that naming of save files was I divided it as I completed each game, and I went back and replayed it. I divided everything into sort of like narrative chapters.
Yeah,
pretty much available to me when I go back and I load a game, and I even gave specific chapters to the cutscenes because I loved the cutscenes in the Thief games. They were some of the most interesting visual things I'd seen in a video game at that point. So
I think they work even today. I think, of course, the resolution is not as great, and it's just 4:3 format. But in general, I think the whole atmosphere of the game still holds up today. The sound design was amazing. The artwork was great. Of course, we talked about that a while ago, and it's so intriguing, and the whole universe is so intriguing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Thief's sound design pretty much still does dunks on modern sound design in stealth games. There isn't a lot I've come across where I hold it up to Thief's sound mapping. You know, that technique they used where they sort of made a proximity for when sounds go off and when you can hear them. Like, that's something I was very... The remake of Thief, I thought, you know, they have to get the sound design right. If nothing else, the sound design has to be like perfect. Yeah. And sadly, it wasn't among many things, which I'm sure we could talk about until the end of this podcast. But we won't.
I know the sound designer, I can't recall the name at the moment. He was the original one from the original games, but he left pretty late in the development.
I think there was a lot. Yes, sorry. There was a lot of technical difficulty with the remake, and like a lot of complex projects are when people are leaving in the middle of things, and when the production phase doesn't go according to plan. I mean, Thief itself had a very difficult development period, and unfortunately, it just didn't come through completely. I don't think as they would have liked it to.
Yeah, but I also think that the 2014 version, which is beloved by the community, that it was in
That's
some
the version I meant when I said
it had some conceptual problems already. So yeah, but let's not talk about this. Let's talk about great things. So I think the general question is, why do we love stealth games? Because I know many people from the community, they play Thief, but they don't play a lot of other stealth games. But so I was very happy to stumble upon you to finally have some partner to talk about those amazing category of gaming. So what is so intriguing about it, and what is so appealing to people like us?
Well, this is an interesting question, isn't it?
Thanks.
Because thinking about the kind of person I am, I can say why I like stealth games and what I find interesting about them. But I've come across, since I started doing my channel, I've come across a lot of different schools of thought on who love stealth games and why. Some people love the idea of getting a system which can function perfectly well without you, and methodically disassembling it. So, for example, going into a thief mission, knocking out all the guards, placing their bodies alongside their unconscious bodies alongside each other, and stealing everything. So you have totally disassembled the system. Other people like the idea of going into a system and just navigating it with perfect timing and absolute precision to the extent where they never get spotted, they never get detected, and they're able to just sort of navigate through and leave the system completely intact. So I think just from those two perspectives, there's a lot of things about stealth games that's mechanically interesting and systemically interesting. Yeah, so you can create things where you are being very abrasive in a particular way. So and that I think was what a lot of design ideas behind things like Tenchu, Metal Gear Solid, Assassin's Creed, and all of the sort of the action-oriented sort of system games. I think a lot of that went into those kinds of games, but you can also have these very subtle interactions where you are training yourself to perfectly run through without interruption.
Yeah, so I think what you already said is like, and this shows, especially in Thief games, you have multiple ways of achieving the goals. That a stealth game, or many stealth games, let's say that are more open, they give you access to different play styles. Like, of course, you can, like you did a really hardcore run without quick saving. This is also a play style of Thief, and so you can set your own goals within the gameplay. So like, yes, I don't want to knock out anybody. I want to be unseen. I want to ghost the mission. And then there are like people like Clatremis, who is stealth, who is supreme ghosting, and I'm the guy who knocks out everybody. So I like everybody to sleep, and then I can rob the place. And I think like games like Hitman allow you to do that, and yeah, of course, Dishonored, and so I think that is very appealing to many people. That it allows you to be different, and then for me, I don't know. It's like, I think that is something that stealth games do. They make you feel smart to a certain degree. Or what would you say?
I think that it's a different kind of interaction for players to do. On a very basic level, I think that's why stealth games appeal to people, and I also think there's an immersion characteristic going on there. I mean, for example, with the Assassin's Creed franchise, I appreciate that it isn't the most stealthy franchise out there, but what people want to do with those games is be an assassin. They want to feel like they are hunting in a crowd for that individual and finding a way to get to them. And you can, like, the way that Ubisoft designs its stealth games is a topic unto itself, really. But you can blaze a trail there, but there is a species of player who will try to find the optimum route to immersing themselves in that role of being an assassin, rather than, oh, I'm a gamer and I want to go and kill that guy and then carry on with this other thing that I've got planned or whatever else. Like there's a degree of immersion going on with stealth games which you don't necessarily find in other genres. Like it's an interesting thing to come across. I mean, that's certainly what impacted me the most. I couldn't say what impacts gamers who are sort of in their 20s who have come up through the 2000s and seen all sorts of things that I never even got to interact with when I was younger. But that was the big break in the design philosophy for me. That's sort of that immersion. You're a thief. You're a sneaky bastard. You're trying to, sort of navigate this place and not get detected. And to a large degree, that non-quick saving thing, which by the way was, like I said, completely accidental. We just didn't know it existed.
You are the early adopter of that playstyle.
Oh no! I can't take credit for that. That it can't be an accidental thing. Someone has to have done it intentionally. But that made it even more immersive. Yeah, but that's what really made it immersive for us, for me and my brother, because we were trying to do this the first time round and get it all right and improvise when things went wrong. Like when things go wrong. Now, what a lot of people do is hit quick load and then they just pick things up from where they had screwed things up.
That's the thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but that is a thing that many game designers complain about, that they design the game with failure in mind. I think that is something you already talked about on your channel as well. And the players are used to know, I do want to do the perfect run. So if anything goes wrong, even if I'm maybe not even spotted, but they just got a glimpse of me, the idea that there might be something that is like a failure, so people go back to the latest quick save, and so they get the idea of at the end they're having the best results. On the other hand, I think that's a problem because some games like Dishonored, they score you at the end. They rate your play, and of course, I don't want failure in that, So, what game? What do you want me to do? You want me to play with that failure, or do you want me to have almost a perfect run? But yeah, I think there is some interesting idea, but I think it's not for most players. So, how do you play stealth games today? What is your approach?
Well, I think we can put blame for this one on the recent fashion trend that is called achievements, because a lot of stealth games now, what they'll do is they'll include an achievement in there where you don't get detected at all, or when you kill all the enemies or do something, and when you're like me and you're kind of like, I kind of want that achievement. You're then sort of funneling what you would do naturally, which is play the game however you wanted to play it, to accommodate the designer who has put in a specific achievement for playing it in an extreme sort of way.
Yeah.
So for example, with the I think that there's something there. I also think there's something with the immersion idea, the idea that you are a thief and you are the best thief that has ever existed, or you're the best assassin that has ever existed. The best assassin and the best thief don't get caught. So as soon as you get caught, that breaks that cycle of immersion that you're going through as you try to run around a mission doing these sneaky tasks. And that immediately in your mind is like, I failed the game, I might as well start over. And that's where the quick saving problem comes into it, I think, for a lot of players. They don't want to be the thief that got caught. They want to be the thief that didn't get caught. They want to be the assassin that didn't get killed.
Yep, the narration
even.
Because the game tells you already, like, from the narration that this guy is the perfect master thief or best assassin ever. Yep. So of course I want to do that.
Yeah, so there is a kind of two-pronged attack going on there. So first of all, unintentional, which I think is just sort of on the part of the gamer. The gamer feels that they should play this role as best they can. They imbibe the role of this character. And the second part of it, I think, is the way that the games, like you say, they rate you. They say, "Oh, you were detected once," and you, "Oh, okay." So I guess I failed that mission then, or I should have done better at not getting detected. So
it's very interesting, I think, because at the end, as the player, of course, I failed maybe several times during the mission, but with a quick load, I made up the outcome, the official rating of my mission, but in reality, I didn't really do the perfect run.
Well, yes, I suppose, but you're kind of rewinding time in that sense. You're pretending that the mistake never happened.
Yes, you're pretending, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, and there's an element to that which, do you solve it or do you not as a designer? That I think is a question that a lot of modern stealth game developers have to ask themselves, and that's really what stealth games are. There's two questions to a stealth game. How does the player stay undetected? What happens when they get detected? Those are the two basic core questions of a stealth game. And the answers, I think now you can have quick saving and quick loading. I'm not gonna judge you if you do. Like that's perfectly fine. And there are loads of great stealth games I love out there who do that. But if you want to be interesting, you can make the player live with that failure in a certain way. Or you can make it so that they can recover themselves from the failure. This is something that I think Tom Francis has talked about before, called the failure spectrum. He called it the failure spectrum. And I think that this was a mechanic I'm pretty sure it was a Metal Gear Ground Zeroes, where you got spotted and you had slow motion start, because Snake has these reflexes, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, "Oh, that guy's seen me," and you have that period of time to shoot the guy who spotted you and recover yourself from triggering an alert. That's interesting, and it sort of allows the player to accept, yes, I failed, I got spotted, but I was able to recover it, rather than reloading the game, doing it all over again.
It's actually a smart way of doing it. On the other hand, of course, you can say like, yeah, but it's an artificial in gameplay way, to make up for your mistake somehow. I didn't play it, so I don't know how it turns out and how it feels to play. But just from theory, I have mixed opinions about that.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. Some people would rather. There are players out there who, if they get spotted, they want the game to be over. Like it's, you got spotted, you're dead. And some games do that, and they get away with it. There was one I played recently called Shadwen. I think it was called Shadwen. Let me bring up my Steam list just to confirm that. I'm pretty sure it's Shadwen. And if you get spotted, the guard is pretty much going to shoot you. You're dead. There is no. That game does not exist in a state where the guards are on alert and chasing you. They will kill you as soon as they see. And so the solution that game has is you rewind time to the point where you didn't make the mistake. And that, to me, feels more interesting than quick loading, just from a gameplay perspective, because it skirts the whole quick save, quick load thing that the player is forced to do in other situations, where you're like, oh, looks like a tricky situation up ahead, better hit F5, whatever. Now you're just immersed in the game, and if you make a mistake, you rewind it. That's perfect. That works. That's good.
Yeah. But back to my question. I think.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I knew that what I'm dealing with. What I find interesting. Are you aware of the play style Supreme Ghosting in Thief?
I'm basically you do get spotted in any shape or form, and you don't knock anyone out, and you're trying to interact with the world as little as possible, save to steal.
Right, and you don't use mouse arrows, and you don't trigger or untrigger cameras and whatever. So you don't
Yes.
want to leave any trace. And now there's an interesting thing. Like, we did the episode with Clitramus, and like when he's doing this, of course, like he is making safe states at different points, so he can go back to then. And for example, there are boxes arranged in a certain way, but he needs those boxes to do a crazy thing, to jump over a wall or anything. But then at the end of the mission, he brings back those boxes and arranges them the way they have been there placed originally. So he goes back to the state where they stand untouched. Then he watches, like, okay, they were arranged like that. Then he goes back into his actual save state with the latest progress, and then he puzzles everything back together, and and that is, I think, very interesting. It's a lot of work, for me. The gaming feeling wouldn't be there anymore, and the immersion. But I think it's so interesting how people come up with all those things and how they create the game and what is fun for them, and
Yeah.
and they, and that's what you said at the beginning, that and I totally agree. A stealth game is so immersive, and I can't actually really imagine another genre that is so immersive like a stealth game, because what it also brings with you is that you are sneaky. You discover things like people don't want others to know. You listen over conversations secretly, and you know way more about the world than in other games. And you discover those things by yourself. So that is very immersive. But then people are like, yeah, but I want this to do this. And so they break their own immersion, which they love, to do crazy things, and
Yeah, that's the systemic part of it, isn't it? Like where people are just looking at the pure system. And it's almost like you're taking apart a puzzle box and then you're putting it back together.
yeah. And yeah, so I put it as a question in my document, but I think we already came over this. Like, stealth games in general, in my opinion, are just a bunch of systems that interact with one another.
I think that could be said. I mean, that can be said about any game, but I think that the particular questions that those systems ask, and the power dynamics involved, those are where you find the differences. The power dynamic between the player and the system is totally skewed the other way. Normally, the player is the thing that's powerful, and the system is the thing pushing against it. In stealth games, the system is the thing that's powerful. The player isn't powerful. Potentially, the player can be very powerful as long as they stay undetected. And that's where I think a lot of interesting comparisons are there to be made with certain simulators and stealth games in general. So if you look at submarine simulators, going right back to Sid Meier's, what was that called? Silent Service games.
Yeah.
Where you, as a submarine, were incredibly powerful as long as you didn't get detected. As soon as you get detected, you're in trouble. And even in modern submarine simulators, like there's some gameplay videos on YouTube. You can look it up. It looks very stealth game oriented, where you're trying to not get spotted or detected by enemy ships while sinking your targets. But they're submarine simulators. Like, they're not explicitly stealth games, but there's a link there, in the power dynamic. And that for me is where stealth games differentiate themselves. Not so much in that they're a bunch of systems, but that those systems are altered in a certain way to accommodate the player's presence. The systems can get along perfectly well without the player. They don't need the player to trigger anything in order for them to work, which is what typically in a lot of other genres you tend to have. So in first-person shooters, for example, the player needs to come along for enemies to spawn into a room. In a stealth game, those enemies are already there. They're already doing their thing. You're the thing that is interfering with the system. You're the disruptor. And that, I think, is also another interesting aspect of the genre and of stealth games in general.
So, to answer the basic question we put, so why do we love it so much? What is the thing that is most appealing to you about because we just talked about systems and things in general, what the games offer, but why do we love it so much?
Yeah, I kind of scattergun that, didn't I?
No problem.
Why do I love stealth games? Why do I love stealth games?
Should I go on?
No. I'm trying to sort of, because again, we're in a place where there is such a wide variety of stealth games out there that offer the player different experiences. That I think that I love games like Thief, what I call immersive stealth games, because I want to feel like I'm really in this situation where I am overpowered by the system and I have to try and figure my way out of it. And that can sometimes work against me, but generally that's that I love. And I love the feeling that I can outsmart this puzzle that's been put before me to infiltrate, exploit, and extricate myself from this system. That's really, I think, the core of what's at the core of what I love about stealth games. I love seeing how the system responds to my presence. When I'm getting into it, when I'm messing around with it, and when I try to leave it. And I think that's what sort of that I think that's a fair answer for a lot of people, but other people love it because they like the players you mentioned who put everything back quickly. And even my brother complained when he was watching me play through Thief 2 back in the day that I was leaving doors open and chests open and things in the game world that he's like, they'll know they've been robbed if they see that open. They'll come along and find you. So I started closing all the doors and chests as I went along, searching for things. There's lots of things that you can latch onto within a stealth game system, and I think that the variety that we have in the genre in general is why you get such a disparity of views from different gamers.
Yeah, as you said, Thief for you is like the immersive stealth game. I think Thief counts as an immersive sim already, right? Which is also a subgenre of gaming, like Prey also is a immersive sim, or Dishonored, I think. And I think games like that in general are very appealing to me. And even if like Prey offers a different approach, it's not a stealth game in general, but you can play it as one. But we will come to that later, like stealth elements in other games. But I think that's all. So you gave actually a perfect answer. I couldn't say it in better words. It's the approach that when I was younger, I felt smart. Today it's a bit different because I know how the systems work and what's behind all that is presented to me in a beautiful or less beautiful way. But still, like as you said, it's like solving a puzzle, and I think the design process of a stealth game also is like that of course the designers create a puzzle for you where they put guards or whatever in certain spots. So you have to figure out how to get there. And then, of course, they give you options like, I think a very obvious one is like Deus Ex, where, okay, there's a guard in front of the door and I need to get behind that. And I know that there has to be, like a vent system somewhere, or there is, or maybe I don't know. There are different ways. I know that they designed it that way.
Talk to get the guard to move, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think today I don't feel smart. I more feel like, yes, I know that something's there and I just need to find it. But still, it's like I have those possibilities, and that's what I love so much. Because sometimes I play Thief like just I just want to have some fun, maybe on a Sunday afternoon, nothing to do, and then there's moments where I'm like, yeah, but today I want to give it a different try, and maybe I tried really to ghost like a mission that I really know very well, and it gives me a totally different feeling suddenly. A mission that I played several times, and suddenly it's a totally different experience, and it's just the same game, but it offers that to me, and I think that's what I really like, and that is another thing. What really catches me, but that's more of the narrative, that most times the characters that are that you play have some character, or some, yeah, they are guys that I like. I'm a big Batman fan, so I always loved like dark characters that act behind the curtains, that are smart, that are preparing, and that are they try to be sneaky and surprise the enemies. And then Thief came along, and I think Sam Fisher is, they are often very ironic characters, with
Yeah, they're very grey. They're
yeah,
very grey. And I mean, and the nice thing about Thief is that Garrett thinks he's smart. He thinks he's the smartest man in the room, and the whole story of the first game for sure is he thinks he's the smart one, and then he finds out, oh, you're not so smart now, are you? He's the author of his own hardships in the game.
people play with him, people use him every
Yeah.
time. If it's the keepers, if it's Constantine, if it's whoever it is, and he always feels like, yeah, but like Victoria in Thief 2. He's in the scene where they meet. He is
Yes.
still acting like he is in charge, and he tells how things are done. But at the end, he does what's necessary, what she tells him to do. And yeah, that's very ironic. But I think that makes him that makes him human somehow, and gives him some character. And we love Garrett, but there are others like Sam Fisher is like that. 47, is always commenting in a very sarcastic way on things, and I think that's and now I want to make a connection to what I believe, that a lot of players that are into stealth games are people that are, I would say, kind of smart or intelligent, they like art, maybe, people like that, creative people. And I think that this fits their character, like, okay, and then they maybe sometimes in the real world they feel smarter than maybe others, and maybe this totally suits their character. You know what I mean?
I would have absolutely no basis to accept or refute that, because I've met and talked to a lot of people who like games for different reasons, and there are very smart people who just like sports simulators. There are
I don't say that everybody who's smart likes stealth.
No. It's just I'm trying to sort of think, and I mean, like, I couldn't say that was correct or refute it, because I have no idea what the rest of the people who play stealth games are like. I've not met all of them. I don't know who they are, or what their drives are for playing stealth games. I can give you my reasons for liking them, and for why I love particular types of stealth games. Subjectively love more than others. But I can tell you that I enjoyed narrative aspects that stealth games brought to that we didn't have before, where you're playing Agent 47 or Sam Fisher or Garrett. These are not roles that you would typically get in games prior to stealth coming along.
Yep.
You wouldn't have the assassin who's got 10 guns in his pocket and is able to sort of shoot his way out of a situation. there's even though that, I think 47 has it.
I just thought of that. I watched your video yesterday.
Yeah, I'm trying sort of 40 Agent 47, like the very first stealth game with him. Oh god, it's a mess now by today's standards. But that in itself has been a fascinating journey to watch this developer. Like they are, I think they're one of the last developers out there who've managed to hold on to the original IP, aren't they? IO Interactive.
Yes, I also think that, because if I think of Thief, it went to Ironstorm for the third one, and now it's still with Eidos, yes, but yeah, they are Square Enix now, and Deus Ex is the same. Dishonored was a new brand.
On a side note, I'm so grateful that they made the Avengers and not another Deus Ex game, if that is what we have to expect from them. Like, can you imagine if they'd done a Deus Ex sequel with all of the microtransactional multiplayer systems featuring,
the thing is, they tried to build up a big universe, with an app, and then you inside the game, Mankind Divided, you could scan things.
I didn't go anywhere near that stuff. I hated it. I hated that.
But it showed where they wanted to go. But then I think Deus Ex Mankind Divided wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be.
It was a successful game. They just wanted it to make. They wanted it to make millions, and it didn't. Like that. Yeah. We can talk about Mankind Divided forever as well, I'm sure. But like, the base. Okay, I will say this: anyone who has not played Mankind Divided, play Mankind Divided, just for its single player. It is a fantastic stealth game. I really enjoyed it. The narrative is but the game itself is really, really solid, and the dev team behind it did a fantastic job with the characters. So
I don't want to go too much into detail here, but I was so happy about when they came up with Human Revolution. Because everyone was expecting maybe it's not so good, but they find a great compromise with taking the original game and adding modern ways of gameplay, etc. But they find a good compromise. So I was very happy and very optimistic for the Thief reboot. They effed it up, but then I was very optimistic for Mankind Divided, which was, from the gameplay perspective, amazing. But then they, the story was not good, and it ended suddenly. And that was like, no, damn it. The first, or Human Revolution, was great story-wise. Now they improved on the gameplay side, but now they, went so good on the story side. What's going on? I was a bit disappointed in that. But I think the world design is very great. And I love to play around in all of this city, Prague. Great game, but that's also an immersive sim. It's not just a stealth game, I would say, but it basically it pushes you in the direction come on, buddy, go stealth.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about the Deus Ex of late, is that they do offer you the options, and they don't punish you where they don't sort of rate you. I don't think they do.
In Human Revolution, they did the mistake that the stealth ways always gave you more XP than the others.
Yes, that was it. That was what I was trying to think about, because when I think of Human Revolution, I just think, it's the hacking minigame. Because a lot of my time in Human Revolution was spent hacking things and playing that, which I don't think I loved at the time, and I think it's aged even worse. But the intention behind it was good, and I would still play Human Revolution again quite happily, because I had a New Game Plus, and I unlocked all of that.
I just replayed it in New Game Plus, and it's still good. I think, as you said, the hacking minigame, the intention was good. Just that it's not just in the first Deus Ex where you just had the multi-tools, I think, to hack. So they try to make it a bit interactive, but it becomes a bit repetitive after several hours. But I think in the second game, in Mankind Divided, I think they made the mistake that suddenly the thing is in 3D, and it's not everything on one screen. You had to scroll around, and I hated it in that game. That was
I think I've actually repressed that from the from the Mankind Divided. I can't remember what the hacking was like in that.
It was the same like in Human Revolution, but in Human Revolution it was presented with 2D icons, and
Right.
and in Mankind Divided it was with 3D animated icons or objects, and they were so close. So first it looked ugly, and then you had to scroll around. It was not everything on just presented on one screen. So it was not it was not good to work with it, and so a repetitive mini game suddenly was work, and
Yes.
yeah, but let's maybe go back to the because I think it suits now, because we were saying what is so great about stealth games and what we like. And then one of your followers or subscribers or patrons or whatever fan, Josh Ricketts, he added a question and he asked us, what gameplay area in your opinion stealth games are lacking the most? And I have an answer to that, if it's okay if I go on
ahead.
with that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest problem is that stealth games don't have a believable AI. But the problem is they need to have those AI as they have it, because the game mechanics have to be a bit reliable for the player. Because if the AI would be really intelligent and almost act like real human beings, success is far away on the horizon, but never reachable. So the AI needs to have those systems that you can relate. Okay, now the guard is in that state. So if I hide here for about 30 seconds, then he will go back to where he was. And then I can go on with my mission or whatever. And I think the player needs that. So because the game has to be readable in some way, because otherwise, it's every time it's a trial and error thing, and you don't know how the AI reacts like real humans would. And I think that's the biggest lack. But also, yeah, I think nobody so far came up with a good way to overcome this and still make an enjoyable experience. What do you think?
I think I'd agree with parts of that. I would say that having a guard system that's readable is one solution. It's a valid solution, and you can have it. So I mean, thinking about but then you also have really complex AI decision trees like you have in, say, Alien Isolation, where the AI is learning about how you choose to approach it. Also shown in a game called Echo, which I don't know if you've played. And
no,
I'm denied about whether or not Echo is a stealth game, because the narrative around the protagonist isn't quite stealthy enough for me personally. But yeah, that's an argument to have in an academic paper or something at a later stage. But Echo is a game like Alien Isolation, are teaching the AI how to kill you, and the AI is responding to how the player interacts with things.
But one question, is Echo, do you just like in Alien Isolation just have that one enemy, or is it?
No, Echo. I don't want to get too far into plot details because there's sort of spoilery stuff, but basically you are trying to infiltrate this place. The place is intelligent, and it defends itself by creating clones of your character and mimicking what your character does. So if you take the stealthy approach and sneak past all your clones, then the place you're sneaking in will be like, interesting. And then you'll see all your clones crouch walking and hiding behind things as they try to get to you. And you're just like, oh God, what have I done? If you take out your gun and stop them. That, but if you do, then it will be like, oh, all the clones have guns now, and they're going to shoot you. If you run,
but it's more like a puzzle game, I would guess.
It's well, all stealth games are puzzle games for me. That's really where I sort of
but I think there are
this parallel with that's where I have interesting times drawing this parallel between stealth games and other genres, because at the core of it, stealth games are a system. They're a puzzle box, and you have to
that's what we already said. But I think there are games that are more puzzle game, and others are more stealth game. You know. But I'm just wondering. I didn't play it, so.
No, sure. I see what you're saying. To go back to the whole sort of AI and readable AI and all the rest of it, if you're gonna have AI which have sort of passive and active states, then having cues to alert the player to what's going on, hopefully sort of how they got detected or how they didn't get detected. These are things which I would say are good things to have generally, but they're not. It shouldn't feel unfair. That's stupid. Let me see if I can find my way around it. Okay, example. People keep saying, "Oh, we want realistic stealth." You don't want realistic stealth.
I agree.
People talk about how they want realistic guards, realistic stealth. You guys, trust me. There are so many things that we as humans can see in our peripheral vision, and how we can respond to things. Like if a rock is thrown at your feet, no one goes to investigate the rock.
Right.
No one goes looking for the rock. Yeah, your lizard brain is like through that. Where the hell are they? And so you start looking for where the rock came from, not from who threw it, not for where it's gone. So you kind of have to make this. You have to sort of accept the system that's being put before you. And as long as that system has consistent rules and ways for the player to smartly negotiate through it, then it feels fair. I'm thinking as I say this, because The Swindle is a game which a lot of people would say a stealth game, because the guards don't react to bodies being on the floor, for example, and it's very easy. Well, very easy. It's comparatively easy to learn the systems that govern the enemies and negotiate your way through them. But for me, it is, because you're in a system that has its rules. It's very clear what you need to do to avoid getting spotted or it's just that there are so many different ways you can get spotted and killed that you have to there's a bit of trial and error involved. And that too is a fair design choice. So to sort of go back to the question, what gameplay area stealth games are lacking the most? If you get caught, then it should be clear why you were caught. There are plenty of stealth situations out there in AAA mainstream games where it basically feels like bullshit. When you get caught or when you get spotted, you're like, well, how? Like, it's because you didn't go to a particular area on the map or whatever to avoid getting spotted by the AI, which was not designed to be a stealth AI. I'm thinking specifically about Call of Duty 4. There's a section in there, there's a mission called All, which is a brilliant mission. Love the mission, it's fantastic, but it has these stealth sections in it, and if you get quickly dead, it's not especially interesting, and it can get a bit frustrating where you're just sort of trying to make your way through to get to the next bit, and then you arbitrarily get spotted by the AI, which wasn't designed to be a stealth AI. There's no radar, there's nothing to sort of give the player a readable indication of how visible they are at any given point. You just kind of have to trial and error your way through it. There are plenty of examples of that. Stealth games need on what the player can do to avoid getting detected, and if they do get detected, then how they screwed up. And there are all sorts of tools which they have used to show these things. Ghost highlights when your character gets spotted. There are games like the Batman Arkham games I think you, and they'll see a highlight of man where he was, and they'll come and investigate that. That the game is telling you they're coming to investigate this bit. It's not realistic, but it is communicating with you. It is able to tell the player you've been spotted and you need to relocate. Sniper Elite 2 also does this, I think. The Sniper Elite games do this thing where there's a lot of audio-based stealth. So if your sniper rifle from a location where your sound isn't cloaked, then you can be marked for investigation by the AI, and you have to relocate to another location. So there's all of these different things, and if you are building a stealth game, then you just need to make it clear. You need to communicate with the player. You need to communicate with the player and make sure that it doesn't feel cheap, and that's difficult, more difficult to do than we realize a lot of the time.
So there's a lot to dissect what you just said. So back to the question, like, would you agree, or what is, in your opinion, the biggest lack of stealth games? Because I think you didn't answer that directly so far.
Well, like I said, I think that the thing that they lack is systems that communicate to the player what's gone wrong.
But don't most stealth games do that?
Oh, not always, and sometimes there are discrepancies. Like, it feels almost cheap. I would say that one of the more popular. I'm thinking of the Dark mod now. I'm gonna get heat for this. I'm sorry, I have to say it.
Go on, and then we'll see.
The Dark mod AI is ridiculous. It's one of those instances where I think that gamers looked at a thing that Thief did and they thought, "Oh, we'll make it better," and I actually think that they made it worse because a lot of this a lot of this is down to level design. So you can have a rushing AI that will spot you with the merest hint of your presence, and they'll come and investigate and find you. You can do that, but then you have to design the levels around it. You have to build the level to compensate for that, to make it interesting, for me at least. I know there are lots of people out there who enjoy punishing AI and punishing level design, where you have to find the optimum route to get past things. For me, that's an immediate just sort of turn off. I am not interested. The AI in the Dark mod, I think, is an example of where the game doesn't communicate effectively to the player.
But there's two things. First of all, I think they're still improving it. There are constantly updates, and I think I totally thought of this as well. So I can agree with you. But my recent plays in the Dark mod have been better. My experience was better. But back in the days, I felt the same. Like, wow, damn it, this AI is not, like the Thief one. And then there's also the problem. It's not one game that is created. No, it's missions created by many different people. And so of course, it would be up to them to compensate for the AI. I don't want to say if the AI is bad or not.
I'm not going to stand from my ivory tower and say, this isn't good. What I'm saying is that it's a common stumbling block, and at the moment, the Dark mod stumbled over that. The AI is lacking a good way to communicate with the player, I feel, personally, in that game. As an example, a subjective example from my perspective, that is what the Dark mod is lacking the most. And it's a thing that some stealth games do. Like the one I was talking about earlier, Shadwen, the AI is from stupid to incredibly punishing. So, and almost at the drop of a hat from level to level. So there are things you can get away with in that game where you're sort of crouch walking around guards, and there are other things where the guard will spot you and then put an arrow in you a second later, where you thought you were safe. So these things are far more common than and it's easily the thing that stealth games and stealth oriented fall down face first, particularly in mainstream games where they've put a stealth section in for a bit of variety. That's often where things go wrong. Thankfully, in a lot of
wait for that. We could come to that later because I said there's a lot to dissect in what you said earlier. So, yeah, generally, you kind of answered the question, but can you make a conclusion to the lack, to the what stealth? Because I think his question, Josh Ricketts' question, was like a general thing stealth games lack. Is there a thing that you would answer directly, straight to the question?
Like a thing that all stealth games lack?
Or basic in general, most, let's say most. Because my answer would have been the AI, and yours?
I don't think that... I could only think of stumbling blocks that some games have tripped up over. I can't think... All the stealth games I've played, there are strengths and weaknesses to all of them. I think to answer that question is the way that I've answered it, which is to say that the stumbling block of AI that communicates clearly with the player, I think that is one of the... I think that's the gameplay area that stealth games tend to lack that stealth games can... It's an easy thing. It's an easy thing to trip up on. I think that's a better than that one, if that makes sense. Like stealth games lack stealth games can lack all sorts of things. Having a... Okay, here's a fun one. Interesting things when the player gets detected. That's a gameplay area that a lot of stealth games lack. What happens when you get spotted that doesn't involve a quick load button? And can you give an interesting question? What happens when the player gets detected? I don't think that many stealth games do give an interesting answer, even very good ones. Like thinking about Alien Isolation, which is terrifying. I love that game and hate it with equal measure. The answer to the question of what happens when you get detected in that game is that you're going to die and have to reload. Unless you have a flamethrower.
Yeah.
I think that stealth games need to answer the question, what happens when you get detected, in a way that's interesting, beyond just hit the quick load button or fail the mission and restart the whole thing. And only a few have given really interesting answers. So again, going back to the swindle video on, when you get spotted in that game, the dynamic shifts and you're basically, you've just got to get out of there. You've got to get out of the level that you're in. Your objective at that point is to escape. And in that game, you die in one hit. So all the enemies are now on alert and they will shoot you if they see you, or they'll do something. If you're on some of the more advanced levels, then emergency doors are slamming closed. So you then have to get past those things and hack systems and just before the cops come, because when the cops come, that's going to be difficult for you to get past. That is an interesting answer to the question of what happens when you get detected. Quite a lot of the time, I don't think that developers have good answers to that question. So that's something across most stealth games, I would say. What happens when you get detected?
I think there we can come back to the thing why people quick load, because I think a lot of times is when you get when they see you, when you get spotted, that in most cases it's like, okay, now you have to hide somewhere where they can't get, and then you have to wait, and you just wait to the for the AI to come down. And I think this is not very rewarding. And I think that is what you just say. Like the answer to getting spotted is not very satisfying. And I think that's one of the reasons why people also do it. It's not just the perfect run, but I think also it's like, okay, now it's 2 minutes waiting in a dark corner, or jumping, like in Assassin's Creed, like hiding in that carriage, and waiting. That's also I think what you said, like the answer the AI gives to your to you when you get spotted is not always excluded very well.
And that's going back really to what Tom Francis said about having a spectrum of failure, which is a more interesting answer than outright failure.
Is that a question to me?
No. I was just saying. I think that's going back to what Tom Francis said about there being a failure spectrum. That's more interesting than there just being outright fail states, like game over, that sort of thing.
Okay, I have problem to follow you here.
Sorry, is my voice lagging?
No, right now not. But no, I just didn't get it. What you mean by that?
Okay. So you get detected. Game over. Boring.
Yeah.
You get detected. You have a chance to recover yourself. And then if you mess that up, you have alternative options to try to recover yourself. That's more interesting.
Okay, no. Yeah.
You with me?
Yeah, totally.
Like that's something we were talking about earlier with when we were addressing a different question. But I think that coming back to that's a more solid, interesting design solution than just saying game over or hit the quick load button.
But still, as I said, like, you have the time to recover, but in many cases, it's just waiting for the guards to come down or whatever. But here, I want to, because let's come back a bit to Thief, because I think this is one thing where Thief does something different. The AI is very readable, and it's the same, like you have to wait and whatever. But I think they did one thing that makes the stupid AI more believable than other games. So is it okay if I go on with that?
Please.
Like, most games that are stealth games, let's just take very prominent ones like Assassin's Creed and for Hitman or Splinter Cell. Those are games that take themselves very serious. And so they try to give you a world that is very serious and that is put into a world that, actually in Assassin's Creed, that is our world some 100 years ago. And Splinter Cell and Hitman, they also give you our world, so a believable modern world. So then this pretty stupid and readable AI, I think it's more obvious there, because in Thief they did something. They made the guards very stupid and goofy. So, you had those stupid guards like Benny, or that angry one that was voiced by Daniel Tron, who's not stupid, but he's very angry and he's totally fed up with the job and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if those guys, if like Benny comes like, oh, was that a rat? And then he's looking into the corner, and then after that he's like, oh, must have been nothing. Or the angry guy who's totally over with the job, he's like, he doesn't care. So he goes back to his place and stands there through his shift, and he doesn't care if there was a thief or not. So, and because they are not so serious in the way they talk and act, it's more believable in my opinion. And that's just because of the setting, and how they and I think they did it because of that. I think that I read that somewhere, like that they figured out that those guys are more believable if they are a bit goofy. And I think no other stealth game, as far as I can remember, yeah, maybe Abe's Odyssey or Exodus. I think that's something that also does that. But I think that's the only examples where it's really a believable stupid AI. Maybe this one for the PlayStation with that animal you play with a blue hat. I don't remember the name.
Like Cooper.
Yeah, I think it's a stealth game as well somehow, right?
It's it's a take on stealth game dynamics for sure.
So I can, since this is a cartoony game, I can believe that or imagine that the AI there also is believable, even if it's stupid, because it's a cartoonish game. But in general, I think the serious approaches of games and the stupid AI, you know, it's very much divided. You know, they want to give you a very believable environment, but then there are people like, oh, this guy. This guy with the bald head and the bodyguard suit. I have never seen him, but he must be one of my colleagues. You know, Of course, there's the system that if you are dressed in like as a bodyguard and other bodyguards discover your disguise earlier, then the maintenance man. But still, it's not very believable. Would you agree with my approach with the that? Because the AI is very goofy in Thief, for example, it's more believable?
I mean, there's a narrative element going on there, isn't there? And it is a nice touch, but you're still ultimately dealing with an AI that is... you're still dealing with an AI that's predictable. So, one way or another, it's not going to be a realistic AI, and it's sort of going back to that idea of, do you want realistic AI? And the answer is usually no.
Yeah.
But you also have, I was thinking again of Alien Isolation and the Working Joe robots.
Yeah.
Because they're not the brightest things on the planet. And again, that's a very believable trait that you would have. So they're irritating to deal with after a point. Like the first time that you realize how tough they are, that's sort of overwhelming in a sense. You're like, oh god, I'm really outclassed here. But there's a nice sort of there's a nice narrative current through there that the alien is smart and the robots are stupid, and you would rather be detected by the robots than the alien, and quite often you are. So there's lots of little things you can do to make a stealth game AI more interesting. When you're looking at Assassin's Creed, you're seeing all these dudes dressed in armor, and when you have armor on, you're not necessarily going to have the clearest view of things if you've got a knight's helmet on, and that's probably why it takes them a while to spot you. So it's a nice touch. It was a nice touch on top of the AI system in Thief, and I love Benny. Benny the guard stories. Whenever he's
everyone loves Benny.
no one hates Benny. No one wants Benny to be hurt.
That's actually true. Yeah. But from the other point of view, do you think that those AIs, that predictable AIs in very serious games, like I just described it, sometimes break the narrative?
No, not always, and certainly not. I think that when you're looking at the immersive sim genre, you expect a certain level of realism to be there. There has to be something. There has to be something to keep the player immersed, and part of that is having believable humans walking around, and that's always going to be problematic because you're running into the same old problem of how do you make a fun stealth game if the AI is reacting like a realistic human would. So I think that you're right in that you can run into sort of slight immersion breaking issues there. Also thinking of systems that are put into role-playing games like the Bethesda stuff, Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, Fallout. These are in my opinion, half-baked stealth systems, and you do not believe that the people you are robbing are this dumb to let you go rummaging through their belongings.
So before we go on with that, let's insert the question of one of your followers, because he was asking something that goes into that direction. Yes. I think it was still also Josh Ricketts, if I am right. And he was like asking, while there's almost no pure stealth games, but practically every AAA studio includes some kind of stealthy gameplay as an option, and simplified one at that. Why is that in your opinion? So I think that would, because I want to insert your follower's question. So let's now talk about non-stealth games that, because you were already with Call of Duty 4, you were already covering it. Like, you think of those stealthy gameplay elements in other games?
Stealth gameplay sections in non-stealth games.
Right.
Or stealth systems implemented into non-stealth games like Skyrim et al. Practically,
I'm very divided here.
Why do they include it? Simple variety. I think you sometimes need to alter pace. Sometimes not everything can be Doom. With first-person shooter games, you do need to include a variety of challenges for the player to overcome. And like I said before, I'm all gillied up from Call of Duty 4. I love it. Is so good, but it is not. It's still taking a stealth-based concept and putting it into a game where there is no stealth game design philosophy backing it up. You kind of have to trial and error your way through and find the optimum route to get past some of the obstacles that are thrown at you. And that's what makes that interesting. That's the interesting part of sections or stealth systems in your non-stealth game. You're changing things up for the player. You're introducing a new type of challenge for them to overcome. And a lot of the time, I think that you can just about get away with it. Skyrim, if you put your stealth up to 100 through training or through just constantly sneaking past people, you can get away with all sorts of stuff. It is good fun to do when you're in the. There are other games. There was a game that came out ages ago from the Final Fantasy VII series called Durge of Cerberus. I don't know if you've played that.
No, I've played no Final Fantasy game.
Okay. That is a third-person action shooter game attempt. Fun enough. More time watching it than playing it. There is a section in there, one of the characters called Kate Sith, who's this little cat character. And he has to sneak past guards for the sake of the narrative, because we're following him while he's infiltrating enemy territory. And it is the most atrocious stealth-based section I have seen in a game ever, to the extent where I was replaying that game just out of a sense of nostalgia. As I got to that section, I stopped.
Okay.
So
must have been really bad.
It's if someone has a contender for worst stealth section in a video game that isn't a stealth game, please let me know. I would love to rank them if I can. But for me at the moment, this one is the very top, because it literally makes me stop being interested in the game as a whole. It's a bit of a shame, because Durge of Cerberus isn't all bad. When it's done well, it's a change of pace, and it makes things interesting for the player, because it gives them something to do that is not running and gunning or running and stabbing or whatever. when it's done terribly, of course, it leads you to situations where the player will just be like, "I'm not interested." So it's a stranger.
I think
That's really why I think people do it. That's why I think that main.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. Like in a game like you just said, Fallout or Skyrim. Of course, those are games that are based on different play styles. So of course they implement this in some way, and I think especially my feeling is that especially after Thief, the way Thief did it, they tried to implement it in some way in other games. Sometimes it works better, sometimes not. For example, I like the stealth element in the Far Cry series, from Far Cry 3 on to Far Cry 5, I think was the last one. And I like that. I think that's a good implemented way. So, yeah. So I take a monologue. Okay. So yeah, in the Far Cry series, I really like it because you have all those guard checkpoints there, and you want to infiltrate them and make them yours. So I love it just to have my bow and check out the surroundings. And of course, it has like on some difficulty levels, it's like if you scan the area, the guards are already marked on your map and with little icons in the world. And I loved that. It was great. In Skyrim, it was a bit more simplified, but I also liked it very much. I loved being a part of the how was it? Dark Brotherhood, right? And the Thief Guild, I think.
Yes,
so
the Thief Guild.
This was pretty amazing. And then there are like what you just said is in Call of Duty. I think I didn't play it, but I've seen it, and I think this is a system where it's implemented. Like there are hard programmed areas where you can be hidden. And I think then it's killing the fun because a stealth game is in many ways about creativity and finding creative solutions. But there is just a hard-coded area where it's possible to be undetected, then it's not fun. It's just like finding those spots. Because I made experience in some games like there's a shadow and there's a shadow, and they are both the same. They have the same intensity of light. But that shadow makes me, I'm hidden in that, but the other shadow, I'm visible, so yeah, it's not very, very fun, because it's just like, okay, the programmers wanted me to hide here, but not there. So I think that's a bad way to implement it. But I think there are many
systems, isn't it? It's readable.
Yeah, but it's not, but you see, it's not part of the system of the game. It's just like put in there on that certain spot. And then it totally is unnecessary to do that, then let it be, then take it out of the game. It's not fun, in my opinion. But and I think also Assassin's Creed is an action game where you can be stealthy. You don't have to. And I think actually in many cases it's not even fun.
Well, I mean, opinion is divided on the matter. Yeah, Assassin's Creed is a stealth game. It just happens to have a combat system that works on top of it. And
I see it the other way around. Interesting.
So you're playing an assassin, and enemies can be in a passive and active state. So that for me fulfills the criteria for a stealth game, because you have that narrative-driven who is a stealthy protagonist, and you have AI that can be in a passive state and then switch to an active state if you get detected.
Yeah.
Those are the only two things that you need to create a very base level of a stealth game.
Yeah.
But Assassin's Creed is divisive because, and I think that this goes for a lot of Ubisoft's games in general, their approach to stealth is like, it's almost like the way that Joss, the way that he put it, like, it's there as an option, kind of. And I think that Ubisoft systems are very sort of freeform. Like you can use stealth if you want to. You can have interest in doing it, but they're also a badass who can sword fight, who can shoot their way out of any situation. So you do what you want to do. Play the game your way. And that's fair enough. But there are people who want to immerse themselves in the role of being an assassin and making that perfect approach to the target and executing the mission. Yes, and you can do that too. Please.
So at that topic, there's like the question from Dilubra or Dilubra or whatever. He's from France, so I think it's like, or she, I don't know, Dilubra or Die, whatever. So he or she had the question that they just put stealth mechanics in the most basic form. For example, I recently played Assassin's Creed Origin and Horizon Zero Dawn on PC. And I like most of the time when I have choice, I choose the sneaky path. But, and I agree with that, but the gameplay feels kind of boring and basic. And on top of that, you're not rewarded since the story often puts you in a situation where you have to face enemies directly without choices. And I would even go further. Like sometimes it's like you sneak through like an enemy's camp or whatever, that when it's part of the main story, then at the end, you can sneak until the end, but then the cutscene or whatever happens, still, you're still discovered, because it needs to be done now story-wise. And yeah, but it's very interesting that you say, yes, Assassin's Creed is a stealth game with choices to act differently. I feel that it's an action game where you have the choice to be stealthy. But yeah, I don't know.
You can divide things into genres based on whatever criteria you like. You can do that. But if you're going to, because I'm doing a channel that's looking at stealth games specifically, I have to have a critical framework to look at them through. And the critical framework is the protagonist coming from a stealth-based narrative, and on a gameplay level, do the enemies exist in both passive and active states of awareness of the player?
But then I could say that Skyrim is also a stealth game where you have the choice to act differently.
In Skyrim, you're the Dragonborn. You are there to kill dragons.
Yeah, but it's a role-play game, so I can up with my narrative for this game and be like, yeah, and but
it's entirely fine. But that's your narrative. The narrative of the game, the intention of the design of the game is you are the Dragonborn. You are there to kill dragons. You are not. You are from no particular background. Like the freeform element of the narrative that the player is free to choose for themselves is kind of irrelevant for the purposes through the game. Now, it's entirely belong to multiple genres and multiple game types, because that's how genres work. Yeah. And I think that this is actually tying into what we've talked about before. And I mean, and just to sort of briefly touch on Lubra's question that they had, they've just asked, what do you think about the trending of games to put stealth mechanics in? They're not stealth games. And I think that this question ties this basic confusion that we as stealth game fans have about what makes a stealth game a stealth game. And if you look at how genres tend to evolve in the video game world, you sort of have a defining moment, don't you? You have a Doom, you have a Wolfenstein 3D, you have a Dark Souls, you have a Rogue. Game which does something, which introduces a mechanism. Other developers think, oh, that's so cool, I should integrate that into my design with its own little twist. And then you have this common thread that links things together. Mm-hmm. Stealth games had a more complex beginning than that. And I know that I did a video on three games that came out in 1998. And
I wonder what those are.
sorry,
I wonder what those are.
I was going to sort of touch on that, but I was also going to say, this was also done by Game Maker's Toolkit, who also looked at stealth games in a huge amount of detail. Which fantastic videos, by the way. Go and watch them if you haven't already.
I did, but I would also suggest them.
They're great, especially if you're looking to design a stealth game of your own. Like he's really good.
The whole channel is very amazing. I think you are doing like a Game Maker's Toolkit just on stealth games. You're just focusing on stealth games. But yeah, Game Maker's Toolkit, huge, not a suggestion, a recommendation, right? Yeah.
Oh, he's great. I don't think I could put myself on his level of analysis. I just talk about things I like in stealth games like this. I'm not getting the detail. I don't think that he can. Go back to
his job.
Whole...
he's living from it, so it's
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Just to sort of go back to the whole confusion around what makes a stealth game a stealth game. Both his video and mine, we talk about three games that came out in 1998. So those three were Tenchu, Stealth Assassins, Metal Gear Solid, and Thief: The Dark Project. They released in that order. But also what came out in 1997 was Oddworld: Abe's Odyssey. What came out in 1998 was Commandos Behind Enemy. You can say that Abe's Odyssey is a 2D puzzle platformer. Sure, it's also a stealth game. There are stealth-based elements within that game that make a comprehensive stealth system. And the same is true of Commandos Behind Enemy Lines, where you could say it's real-time strategy. Yes, it is. It's also a stealth game because you are a small team of elite commandos who are trying to infiltrate and control territory. So you have very different approaches to stealth game design. And we could be here all day breaking down how they're different and how they approach things. But the whole idea that things are trending to put stealth mechanics into things that aren't stealth games, I think that the origin of that question is rooted in basic confusion over what makes a stealth game a stealth game. Because we've had, from the very beginning, such a diverse collection of approaches to stealth-based game design that you tend to have people for whom Metal Gear Solid was their introduction to stealth games, and they love stealth games that emulate that kind of gameplay. So Metal Gear Solid, Splinter Cell. You have people for whom Tenchu was the defining moment. So Assassin's Creed is a follow-on from that. You can see how that would sort of feed off of a lot of the things that Tenchu brought into the and then you've got Thief, which is its sort of immersion. You have the first-person perspective, the immersion aspect of stealth. These are very different approaches, even within these three very popular games. But then on top of that, you have this RTS approach from Commandos, and you have the 2D approach from Abe's Odyssey. So you can... I think that stealth games are a broader range than people... A lot of us come in with our own biases. If you like a pure stealth game, because we have colored vision from the games that got us interested in stealth-based gameplay, rather than taking a step back and looking at where stealth-based gameplay was implemented throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, and acknowledging that actually it's a very diverse collection of sorts of things that you can have and stealth-based narratives running through. The trending of games
I totally agree.
Yeah. The trending of games to put stealth mechanics in things that aren't stealth games, maybe they are stealth games. And you're just not acknowledging that they're stealth games. Which is fine, because they're maybe just not your type of stealth game.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, someone who looks at stealth games on... I have to accept the baseline categorization of the stealth genre, which for me, as I have defined it, to make sure that everything that's from that period of time, Commandos, Abe's Odyssey, Metal Gear Solid, Thief, and Tenchu, to make sure that they're all included, I have to accept everything and everything that's continuing to come. If we don't do that, then what we end up with is a very narrow genre definition, which doesn't last, because if you lock everything else out, then you are restricting what stealth can be. And for me, it's such an interesting set of mechanisms and produces such interesting results design-wise that it would be a shame things just because your favorite stealth game happen to include those very early, very defining moments. So that's really my take on it.
I totally agree, but I still think that in some cases, as I said, like the commandos argument is one for me, because as you say, like, yes, you can look at it like a strategy game, tactics, whatever.
It is a strategy.
Yeah, but of course you can also give it like put it in the it's mainly a stealth game. I would agree, because I think if you are discovered or yes, you spotted, I think the mission is like almost over. From what I remember, it's so long time ago, but I think the guards, they don't go back into the zero state, right? I think they always
No, once they're active, once things wrong, so they are patrolling. They are sending out patrols from their bases.
And that is actually interesting, because that is one way, like as we talked about the not very believable AI, I think that is a way, like they did it. Yeah, of course, this is more believable, because yes, of course, they would be more attentive now, and pay more attention, and they would change their routines because they feel there is something. And
not only that, but actually dive in there. It's not only that, they also react depending on how you deal with them when they detect you. So if you start shooting them, then they will try and kill you. If your character that's got caught because you're in a squad, so it's one character that tends to get spotted, hopefully, they'll take you prisoner. And then you can break your buddy out of prison. So there's all these little tweaks to that, which, just wanted to sort of insert that. Go on.
But still, I in my opinion, like I think Assassin's Creed, they started as more of a stealth game, but if I look at the latest parts of the series, it's I'm still with it. It's for me, it's an action game, because so many things I do are an action game orientated mechanics and stuff like that. And then there are moments where you can be stealthy, but I think the way they executed it is not a good one. I think the stealth gameplay, and I'm missing that because I loved the series, is not there anymore. So yeah, it depends on what part of the series you're looking, maybe, but maybe I'm a bit sore there.
Like on to what we subjectively like about a stealth-based has been implemented. But let me ask you a question off the back of that, because I've always found this phrase action game to be a hang-up from marketing teams who just think action, it sells.
Yeah, of course.
Everything has been... Thief was described as an action game back in the day. It might not be now, but it's... And thinking about that, it's an action game for you.
Yeah. I know what you mean, and I can agree. And if you basically put it at action game, of course you're doing actions in every game. If I would come from that side, but for me, it's a game. Now it's hard for me with my limited English, where the focus is very much. Yeah, it's really hard for me to explain. And on German, I could do it perfectly. I'm sorry. I really have problems explaining what I want to say.
You see, this I don't think it's the language barrier. I think I would struggle to describe what an action game is because it's almost a non-descriptor.
I know that there is a huge variety of action games that can be put in, and you can almost put.
Because it's a non-descriptor. It doesn't tell you anything about the game. It doesn't tell you anything that could put a clear image of the game in mind for you, and that's quite deliberate. It sounds great, like action game, awesome, but it doesn't give you anything to really work with in terms of where you put it. If you say stealth game, the sort of what the idea of it is, for your tastes as a gamer, isn't executed with as much finesse as you would like it, you still have an idea of what it is. And this isn't to take away from the idea that games can belong to multiple genres, because they do, and they are. You think about the sort of narrative elements of any film, you can put it into you can put these together. And you can have a good idea of what that means. But when people say action game, I kind of roll my eyes, because there is nothing in the lexicon to me which immediately sort of says, oh, this is an action game and this is a non-action game. The only non-action games I think are things that people would say are walking simulators.
But I think, I think we can now, discuss what is an action game. But I think that is not the point here, actually. I think the point here is take Far Cry, which you would call a shooter, right? And then take Assassin's Creed. For me, both are open world games. And yes, their systems are very comparable. And yes, the Ubisoft formula. But in my opinion, it's like almost the same, but just the narrative is different, and the perspective. Like Assassin's Creed is third person and Far Cry is a first person shooter game. But at the end, you have an open world where you can interact with, and you have different approaches of solving a problem. Like, let's take like a camp of the guards or whatever. And I don't feel that the focus, or for me, it feels almost the same. So for me, it doesn't feel like Assassin's Creed is a focused stealth game with different elements. No, I think it's almost the same approach as Far Cry. And you wouldn't call Far Cry a stealth game.
I haven't played all of them, but generally, the ones I have played, I would say probably not. The Far Cry 2, I think, came pretty close.
Yeah, I mean the newer ones,
Again,
from Far Cry 3 on, like.
No. There's not a lot grounding me in a stealth-oriented role. Stealth is definitely an optional thing you can do.
But if you go after the narrative thing, I could, I just can say like, okay, the Doom guy, if he would have from the narrative in the story, he would have always been a sneaky thief, but now he's in hell, and he's still not a stealth game, because the guy would have had a history of stealth characterization,
No, this is where we're sort of getting things mixed up. It comes from
I know what you mean. I just try to argument here.
It comes from a composite. You have the gameplay aspect where you have the passive and active enemy states, and then you have the narrative aspect with the character being a stealth-based character. Those two things together are what make a stealth game. You can't isolate one and only use that. You need to sort of apply both of them in the framework which I choose to use anyway. And it's my own arbitrary framework. Yes, I know, for the purposes of analyzing stealth games on my channel, but that's the framework that I've had to use to make sure that everything that should be included is included, as previously discussed with regard to Commandos et al. The idea that you can say that Doom is a stealth game if you make the Doom guy be a sneaky person or whatever, it doesn't hold, because the AI is not designed for stealth. It's a totally different kind of machine. it's a reactive. It's an AI which is designed to activate as soon as you enter a space and come out.
But the AI in Assassin's Creed and Far Cry acts almost like comparable. You know, they have different states, but still, it's almost the same. But still,
they are totally different AI designs. The AI designs in Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, rudimentary, you might consider it, but they are capable of having passive and active states to them and existing without the player's interaction. There's no reason why you can't go through Far Cry and do as much stealth as you possibly can all the way through it. In fact, there is a channel I can recommend called Stealth Gamer BR who does exactly that. He goes through Far Cry, he goes through Assassin's Creed, and he does pure stealth runs through these camps. Some incredible stuff, really. You could not do this in Doom.
No, but I can do both in Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, and so I don't consider both as a stealth game in first, you know? But I can be stealthy in both games in comparable ways. That is my argument.
It's a fair take, but it doesn't stop things from belonging to multiple genres from the perspective of looking at it purely in a purely sort of analytical way. Having a Far Cry game and an Assassin's Creed game where you can sort of do stealth-based things as an option, yeah, sure, that's entirely fine. But as soon as you try to say that Assassin's Creed isn't a stealth game just because you have a combat system that happens to be functional, that to me is taking something away, because Tenchu had the same thing. I mean, okay, it's not very good by today's standards. The Metal Gear games have combat systems in them which are very functional.
But I think that the stealth, how the stealth mechanics work in Assassin's Creed are not very good for a stealth game. If you look at it as a stealth game, that's what I want to say.
It's a valid opinion, but it's an opinion that I might share for sure. But I still have to classify Assassin's Creed as a stealth game because it fits the criteria. It might not be a good stealth game, depending on your take on what you enjoy from stealth games, but that's a different thing.
But I have the feeling that yes, I think they kind of market it as some stealthy game, and on the other hand, as an action game, of course. But what I want to say is, like, if it wants to be a stealth game, I think I have the feeling that the focus is way more on other mechanics, and the stealth mechanic is executed very poorly. And then I see Far Cry, where I have the feeling that the execution of the stealth element, is not way worse, or maybe even better. It's up for debate. So, from my point of view and my feeling, it's like very comparable, and I would put both in the non-stealth focused game area. I can totally see your point with when the narrative is like that, and yet the whole story about assassins, it's in the game, it's in the name of the game. This implies something like, hey, this has some stealthy smell, but still it's it doesn't feel right for me. It's sad because I love the series. But
I would round it off by saying it is not your kind of stealth game.
It's my kind of game, but it's not a stealth game for me.
With your preferences for stealth games, it doesn't match up to your expectations.
Yeah, but I still have the feeling that the focus on
there are people who would sort of divide first-person shooters based on how well they felt the first-person shooter element had been done. So, for example, the Metro series, which is very first-person-y, and it's not a stealth game for sure, and and it has a lot of first-person shooter elements to it. But is it a good first-person shooter? Depends who you ask.
Yeah.
It's not really designed with the same framework in mind as a Call of Duty game or a Doom game, but it offers.
I think the approaches are very different.
It offers things that are different to it, and that for me is what Assassin's Creed is to stealth games. And I mean, Ubisoft games in general suffer from this design where they're trying to accommodate all parties, and this is sort of coming back to the question that was raised.
Totally agree.
And you know, for my purposes, I can't exclude it because I have to accept all efforts to make a game which fits into this weird little genre that I'm looking at are valid. And because they're valid, I have to look at them. I have to scrutinize them. Subjectively, there are plenty of things I could say that are negative about Assassin's Creed or any number of franchises which would fit under the stealth game umbrella, if you like. But nevertheless, I have to include them because this genre, this thing that started with 5 games, 5, like, it's such an outlier in terms of how genres in video games tend to get started that we have to allow for some space. And genres, by the way, people use the word and they think it's this solid, already formed thing that's crystallized. It isn't solid, it's liquid. Genre definitions and genres in general are stretched and morphed and changed all the time. That's how they evolve. That's how things move forward within them. You have to use basic categorizations to even have an idea of how you would define something. And that's why I say defining an action game is very difficult, because it's been applied to so many different things. So again, this is where I feel the disconnect comes in for stealth games.
That's why you can make a whole channel about it.
About stealth games.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why, because there are so many different approaches and so many different ways to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. I think on the Assassin's Creed thing, I think we can agree to disagree. But in general, I'm totally with you. I know where you're coming from. What's your point? And I can see that.
I'm not saying Assassin's Creed stealth is good. I'm saying it's valid.
Yeah, I know.
An attempt to sort of to be a part of the stealth game genre. It's not necessarily a good attempt, but it is there.
I think it was good at a certain point. I think they lost it maybe in already the 3rd game. Yeah. But Assassin's Creed has other great elements. So I think up to Origins, it was a great series with some more or better games. But in general, I loved it. But yeah, we are already at 2 hours. So if it's okay for you, we can go on with another category.
Yes, absolutely. Bring it.
So hopefully, Dilubra, this answered your question in some way. So there's a big genre, and I think you gave it 3 videos, I guess, if I'm correct, to the 2D stealth games.
Oh, yes. 2D stealth games.
So first, I think that's a very interesting genre, and I think, yeah, as you said, it was, of course, it was the earliest stealth games have been 2D stealth games. The first game that I remember is Abe's Exodus, and I think it's one of the more famous.
Abe's Odyssey.
Yeah, Abe's Odyssey, and then Exodus was the second, right?
Yes, that was the second one.
Yeah, and so the first 2 Abe games in general. Yeah, what is so interesting about them, and what is different to the famous 3D environment stealth games?
Well, I mean, the obvious difference is that you're working in more of a restricted space as a player and as a developer. So you have different challenges to overcome there. And there have been, like in the 3D stealth game examples, there have been different solutions to these problems. I think that I don't think there will be many in your audience who haven't at some point played Mark of the Ninja if they like stealth games at all.
I did.
Yeah, so Mark of the Ninja is almost the gold standard that a lot of people will hold up as, 2D stealth game. Mark of the Ninja. It's one of those instances where everything just aligned after a lot of playtesting, where they gradually refined their ideas until they came out with something which just functioned pretty much perfectly. I replayed it recently because I got the remastered version for free. Everyone who had the original on their Steam list was able to get the remastered one, I think, for free.
But it already came some years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because I also have it. Yeah.
Oh god, my back catalogue of games I need to play through on Steam is just horrendous. I can't get into that.
240 games left.
But I sat down and played it again, and I was just again blown away by how good it was, and how they sort of did these little things, like when enemies are moving around in the space above you, which you can't see, you can still see the sound circles that emanate from their footsteps, and you can hear their muffled voices or their muffled walking, and guns being cocked and all sorts of stuff. But it's not the only 2D stealth game that has come up with smart solutions to things. I mean, again, the Swindle, which I've brought up several times in this podcast, I know, but I still love the fact that that was so different from how Mark of the Ninja solved different problems of creating a stealth game in a 2D space. Because, again, it's about imparting information to the player. And after the Swindle, we can get into Wildfire, which does, again, totally different things with stealth and how things work and how guards perceive you and how things are communicated. Wildfire has some of the best communication systems between the player and the system that I've seen since Mark of the Ninja. In fact, I'd argue that it's been the best 2D stealth game that's come out since Mark of the Ninja. So if you haven't played Wildfire yet, give that a go and see what you think. But
or look at your channel where you dissect it.
Oh yeah, that too. But just play it, guys. It's good. It's really good. Gunpoint as well, another favorite, which did completely different things to Mark of the Ninja, where you're literally hacking the system to change how things work electronically within a building to get past obstacles and to evade guards. I feel that that's a broad enough category that we can now we can say 2D stealth games have been a thing for a while, and they're finally starting to they have been popularized because Mark of the Ninja came out, and then other people came along with their ideas and produced these things which are just sort of very different from what their 3D counterparts are offering, but nonetheless are valid. There was let me just search this up. I need to search this one up because it's coming out at some point, and it looks really interesting. And I will say it once you finish speaking. So sorry, I interrupted you, Carter.
No, please go on with your example, because then I want to come with the pros and cons of 2D stealth games, because I have one big problem with 2D stealth games.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to love them, especially Mark of the Ninja. I wanted to love that game, but I couldn't. The same with Ape. Yeah. So, did you find your example?
I know what it's called. It's called.
Okay, so I go on with my big problem.
As I do my searching, because I'm gonna need to do some false tweeting to find these people, because I followed them a while ago.
Okay, so 2D stealth games, like as you just said, like Mark of the Ninja, for example, it overcame some problems. They solved them with, like, as you just said, that you can still see the footsteps indicated with those lines, echo lines and stuff like that. So it makes up for the limited camera view you have, the limited orientation you have. And I think wasn't it also like that when you crawl through a vent that you can only see, you can only see what your eyes can see from the character's perspective. And there are many great things, but I have the problem, and you just said it already, they have limited spaces. And for me, it always feels like more like a real puzzle game, with a stealth narrative. But at the end, it's like, okay, they made this room and everything is set where it is. And there are very limited ways of a solution. I have the same with Ape. There are like, I think, first of all, the first problem in 2D is that how do you make the hiding and guards still passing you? Yeah, you have certain spots where you can maybe go into, I don't know, a cupboard, or you hide behind a plant, and then your character just becomes that silhouette and whatever. So the guards can pass you and they don't find you. But at the end, it feels like, there are certain spots where I can do certain things, and I need to do them in a specific order to solve that room. And then I go on to the next room and the next room. So for me, and that is what I love about stealth games, and we talked about that at the beginning, like the narrative and the immersion isn't given to me. For me, it more feels like just a system and certain spots, and the difficulty rises over the game, and you get new elements. And of course, in Mark of the Ninja, there are different ways of solving a room. But in general, like Stealth Inc. Something like that as well. It's more a puzzle game. So I love the stealth narrative, but the way I can act within that is so limited that after a while, it loses its charm for me. It's not like in Dishonored where there's a guard in one room and I can circle around it, and I can come from above, or like this, and that's not fun for me at the end. Or when I'm discovered, then there's just limited ways to hide and leave the room and whatever. And so I want to love it because I really like how the game looks and everything, but and I'm so frustrated. I started it, I think, 5 times now.
Well, I think we're back in that room where there's a stealth game and you're not too keen on the stealth game.
No. It's different. It's now Assassin's Creed. It's not comparable to that. But the execution of course, it's, as I said, it's limited, and of course, because of the perspective, they only can do certain things. But it frustrates me sometimes that I can't love it.
Well, I don't really have a response to that, because I mean I can't tell you that you're objectively wrong about your opinion about how a stealth game executed its stealth-based component. I can only say that for me, I loved it, and I loved what Stealth Inc. did, and Stealth Inc. 2 for that matter. I'm ashamed I didn't mention them at the same time as Mark of the Ninja, because like in you say that they're puzzle games more than they're stealth games. Like, for me, stealth games are kind of puzzle games.
Yeah, we talked that, and I agree, but they are too puzzly for me,
Too puzzly.
It's not, as I said, there are official puzzle games. And
official puzzle games. Yeah, there is a puzzle game board which stamps puzzle game onto the puzzle game.
You know what I mean, I think. There's like, okay, if I search puzzle game, and then there's like where you have to move blocks in certain ways, and then you know what I mean.
You're coming up with solutions to problems, and
right.
In the case of Stealth Inc., there's a lot of problems where the solutions are fixed, so you have to figure out the one solution. So it's kind of breaking that rule that I have personally for stealth games, where I don't like it when it's only one solution. I like it to be multiple solutions, but that's just my personal take on it. And for to Stealth Inc.'s credit, I didn't care that it did that, because I was having so much fun avoiding death by drone and being detected generally, that I was able to sort of go past that, and that's an achievement in and of itself, I think, when someone who doesn't ostensibly like something that your game is doing in most things, and then your game gets them to finish it. That's kind of cool.
But as I said, like, I have a problem. But you were just sending me the link. What you meant is Siege and Sandfox. This looks really interesting.
Yes, like this isn't out yet, guys, so don't go hunting for it. But there's a great channel, there's a great YouTube trailer, and it's being sold as a 2D stealth Metroidvania game, where you're basically, it looks like you're a thief of some kind. I don't know much about
like Garrett. Let's be honest, he looks like a pixel version of Garrett.
Looks like a pixel version of Garrett. Bit more going on in the sort of being able to see his face department, but. Yeah, there's that, and there's another game coming out, which it was so long ago that I was looking at this thing. I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? Like, games that are good take a long while to make, like, and you just have to sort of recall back all the things that you're following. There is another game coming out, which is, I think, more sort of like it's almost like a 2D version of Dishonored, I think. So you've got all these little powers that you can use to sort of zip around the level. And
I know, I've seen that as well.
Yes, I can't remember what it is.
Me too. But what then there's one example where I wanted you to ask, did you play Inside?
I did. I think.
Would you consider it a stealth game or a puzzle game?
A puzzle game.
Me too, but the puzzles are in a narrative where it's often about hiding. So you are kind of stealthy, but yeah, the elements of there's just that one solution, and like Stealth Inc., you know.
Wait a minute, let me think. This is, where are we? Inside. That was by the guys who made Limbo, right?
Exactly.
Right, let me see that.
Great game, by the way. It's an amazing game. You can play it in one afternoon, but I loved it. Especially the end was very surprising.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it, and I mean, it's one of these games which sort of sits on the cusp, because it has no real stealth system, right. And enemies are usually in an active state around you, so it's very on the fence. It's definitely got that sort of element of, oh God, I better stay hidden, otherwise I'm going to get killed. And the protagonist has got this sort of thing of they've just got to stay hidden, but at the same time, like, it's not quite developed enough in the gameplay aspect for me to stick the stealth label on it. Narratively, I would say that it fits more than it does in gameplay. So in the narrative, you are a boy trying to escape the situation and stay free.
Stay hidden.
Yeah, and stay hidden. In terms of gameplay, you're kind of dealing with if you mess up, then there's no. You're dealing with enemies that are usually in an active state around you, and you have to find ways to try to dissuade them or to get them to leave you alone. It's very
their reaction to you in certain situations is always the same, like hard programmed. You know, like if you you know, like step into that light cone, then the camera will get you, and then you get shot or something like that.
Yeah, like
so you have to figure out the way around it or something like that.
It is definitely more puzzle than stealth. I would put it in puzzle game category, because you are trying to. So where do we draw the line between
stumbling over your own arguments, mister?
Well, it's interesting trying to sort of work around where the boundaries are, because in any genre you're going to get crossover, you're going to get things which don't quite fit, and that's what makes it interesting to me. So thinking about how we fit things around where Stealth Inc. ends and where Inside begins, I think with Stealth Inc. you can screw up and you can survive. It's very rare, but it can be done. With Inside, you screw up, the enemy is active, you are finished, you are toast.
Yeah.
And there's no real allowance for enemies doing things. So in Stealth Inc., enemies have 3 states of awareness, which is very stealth game design oriented.
I agree.
You have drones which can sort of spot you if you're in half-light. They're sort of like, oh, what's that? And you get this little red laser that's pointing at you. And they're kind of like, and a little question mark appears over their heads, and they come and investigate if they're mobile. There are other enemies that can either see you or not see you, so it's very binary. So things like cameras are very binary in Invisible Inc. So I think Invisible Inc. I think there are clear lines of differentiation there between Invisible Inc. and Inside, where you can say Invisible Inc. it fits into the stealth game category, and Inside it's a puzzle game, it's a puzzle platformer game. And I mean, we can look at things like Abe's Odyssey, which is very puzzly. In the second section of the game, you go to you get out of the factory, which is more the stealth-oriented section, and you go to the deserty environment, I want to say. Like you're out and about anyway, and in that section of the game there is almost no stealth whatsoever. It's a case of you either survive or you die, and the enemies that you're dealing with are animals, so they can see you and react to you, or you find a way around them. So again, you're sort of you've got these things where the definitions of stealth game are being tested. I feel that they still hold, because ultimately you do go back to the factory missions in Abe's Odyssey, and it is still stealth-oriented gameplay. And even outside, there are sections where it's, I think it's nighttime, it's dark, and you can hide in the shadows of obstacles and things.
Yeah.
From enemies. So again, that's very kind of that's got a lot of the stealth-based element to it. So I think that we can draw a line under that. I think that Inside can be comfortably put into puzzle platformer, and even though there are elements to it where you're just like, oh god, I've got to run away and I've got to hide, it's so fixed and the enemies are so resolute one way or the other that it almost puts itself in that puzzle game category. There's no real, I don't feel that would be misinterpretable as stealth based.
Yeah, but I thought it was an interesting example where the line is very thin.
The line is always very thin because you're working with definitions that are very loose because they have to be, from my perspective anyway. That's part of what makes some of the videos that while I'm doing them, that's what makes them interesting to me, because I'm sort of feeling around the edges of what this thing is. And
I think the problem is with us humans, we always want to put things in categories, so it makes our world easier. So, so we can define things like that has to be this has to be that. But especially in stealth games, it's part of the game, because as we said at the beginning, like what we like is that you have so many ways to play the game. But of course, this gives developers so many interesting ways of using the stealth umbrella, but you can put so many things under it, and how you execute it and everything. Actually, the genre brings it with it, that there are so many different ways of executing a stealth game. So and it's hard to define.
Yeah, and that's what makes it beautiful to me. Yeah, that's what makes it interesting to look at. Because if we didn't accept anything beyond first-person games into stealth game categorization, then it would be a very small place. And you wouldn't have much room for innovation in it. And the same goes for if you only took 3D games and didn't include 2D games. You can say that you prefer 3D stealth games to 2D stealth games, but as soon as you exclude 2D stealth games from being stealth games, then I don't know where else you would put them. It's a subgenre, and like any subgenre, it's only the 2D element that really separates it from everything else. So that's the only defining trait of 2D stealth games. It's in 2D. That's the only thing that separates it from everything else I talk about. It's a 2D game that has a sneaky protagonist and enemies that can exist in passive and active states, varying degrees.
Yeah, I totally agree. This Siege at the Sandfox, this really got me.
I know, right?
I really love to look at it, and I want to play it now.
Well, you can mark out their Twitter for you to follow their progress.
Yeah, I already did. I'm on the Discord as well.
Yeah, so it's yeah, guys, keep an eye out. This is the nice thing. This is the thing that I've loved about indie games. I think that indie games are the way forward in lots of respects for our preferred genre of gaming. This weird thing we call stealth games, because indie games are taking these things that have been set as precedent and they are messing with them. You know, they're really pushing the boat out on what can be done with today's tech and today's ideas. And there's so much good stuff out there. I think
that counts for indie games in general, but not just on the stealth approach.
Oh, no, absolutely. But I mean, if you're thinking about stealth games in particular that you're interested in, there are lots of things that I can throw out as recommendations for people to give a go, for sure.
Do you like the Thief Simulator?
I've played it. I thought for what I played of it, I thought, okay.
You need to give it a chance, a big chance.
I'm entirely sold. I'm not entirely sold on it. I will go back to it and give it a go. I'm certainly more interested in that than I am at the present time interested in the Dark mod. But that's only because I think that I just got unlucky with the Dark mod and had a couple of missions which just did not have good introductory sections to them.
I can give you some recommendations later. And maybe in the near future there will be an episode with some of the Dark mod guys. Who knows? Yeah. You know, I think we could talk hours and hours about stealth games. We did actually. But do you think that we could or should or come to a conclusion or some end, or is there something you think we missed?
I don't think there's anything we missed. I think that all I would say to the diehard Thief fans of the internet is that there is a big wide world of stealth-based games out there which you need to get into, because some of the things that these guys are doing is phenomenal. And if you give things a try, then at least you can say you gave them a shot. And if it appeals to you, then great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. There's so much in the way of design philosophy around stealth games, and it's so much more varied. Like, when I started the channel, I didn't realize how big stealth games as a concept would be. And since I started the channel, I've been constantly surprised by what could be brought to the table in terms of how stealth games operate and the way they answer those two questions. How does the player stay undetected, and what happens when they're caught? There's so much out there. And Thief, for me personally, it holds a special place in my heart, genuinely. I love those games. I love Looking Glass Studios games, and I sort of love Deadly Shadows. I think that Dan Thron said it best. Thief has already been made, and we want to see what happens next. as well as what has come before. So I don't think that it does. I don't think that we can justify a genre existing unless we see where it's going and what it's pushing for and what it's exploring. And there is lots that I would love to say about Dishonored and all the things that Thief has inspired, but I'm sure we're pressed for time. So
no, we're not pressed. We have some 3-hour episodes, so we're not close to that. But I think that's an interesting thing. First, I think that many diehard Thief fans. Just an example. I asked Nex if he wants to join this episode, some days ago, and then his answer was like, if there would be any other good stealth games, then yes, but he didn't play others, So I think on one hand there are Thief fans and they just want their Thief 1 and 2 like games, and I will come to this later. So they don't even accept other Thief games that are different, and I can see why, because yes, Thief Deadly Shadows I think is like, yeah, the little brother, you really love, but sometimes he's really annoying. But Thief Deadly Shadows was still a good game, and I think it has high regards in the community still. But that is something I wonder, because Thief is still around. There are still people that are actively taking part in the community. We just had a contest that ended at the end of last year, and now we are playing like 8 new missions or something like that. But I wonder, why is that? Of course, I have an answer for me, but I would love to hear yours. Like, what would be your explanation why Thief is still consuming people so much? Even if it's just a small community, but it's active for over 20 years now,
Yeah, I know, and I've been aware of that community. I haven't dived into the fan mission stuff a lot, but from what I have seen,
shame on you.
This is my problem. I love the original takes so much. I love the original story so much that I should preface this by saying I have great admiration for anyone who is willing to take time out of their day to build a mission using Dromed, and start to finish making it an interesting place for Thief fans to explore. My problem is that I just want to play the original thing. I played T2X Shadows of the Metal Age, and I had a moment where I thought, this is as good as Thief 2. And they've kind of made things interesting, because you can't pick up big guys, because you're a smaller character than Garrett was. And that they took the gameplay in interesting places by having ice arrows, I think, as well. And then there was a period in the game where I was like, this isn't as good as Thief 2. I'd rather be playing Thief 2. So fan-made missions for me are kind of hit and miss. Sometimes they are excellent, and
yes.
sometimes I just think, like,
yeah, that's always the case. Like every
that's always going to be the case with user-generated content, right? Like, you're always going to have things that are outstanding and things where you're just like, needs improvement.
But as well, I can give you here some great recommendations. So
yeah, I know. I'm more than happy to hear them. I've tested 1 or 2 fan missions for people in the past and enjoyed them. Enjoyed a lot of what they had to offer for the most part. But again,
do you remember the names of the fan missions?
I remember one of them. I think it was. It was something Prophet. It was by a designer called Andy Durge.
A Knight's Prophet.
No. Let me have a look. I'm going to need to go through my lists on Twitter again, because it was called Not for Profit, I think.
Okay.
I might be horribly misquoting, but it was a while ago, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't remember. Let me just go to my thing.
I can't recall it at the moment. I know a Knight's Prophet, but making a profit. That was for in 2018 for the Thief Dark Project 20th anniversary.
I think that was it. That was it. Making a profit.
Yeah.
So I play tested that one and fed back to the guy who put it together, and that was really interesting.
Andy Durden.
Andy Durden.
Yeah.
Remember his name.
Yeah, but there are amazing missions that really, are like where you're like, wow. I just say the Builder's Paradise was from the last Thief 2 20th anniversary contest, was second place, or we talked about it in an episode, or the winner, Feast of Pilgrim, and there are so many great the Lady Rowana's missions. Rest in peace, by the way. She did amazing stuff back in the days. There's so much great stuff where like, wow, that's really great.
Mm.
And now we are talking about like what could be the next contest, and I was suggesting something like, hey, take original fan missions, but create a totally new environment, like and or make them even better, or whatever. And there's so much going on. But to the question again, what would be your explanation why people are still loving the Thief games or universe or whatever?
Because Looking Glass created this world and this character, and it was in the twilight of Looking Glass's existence, as it turned out. And I think that it's kind of one of those. It's one of those great tragedies in gaming where the best work of a developer is put out just as they're going.
Yeah,
I think that there's an element to that, and I think that the fact that it was on PC, because being on PC, it naturally gets preserved. Like console games suffer from this problem where they're tied to generational hardware. There's no getting around that. You can get around that, but not legally, so don't officially try to. But console games are tied to generational hardware and almost resist being preserved. Because it came out on PC, Thief was preserved and it was patched to work on modern systems. It's had a massive, it's had a cult following for years. And the fact that it was just so unique and interesting as a game and ambitious, like there was no game doing with difficulty levels, as far as I can recall, what Thief the Dark Project and Thief 2 the Metal Age did, which was to not only make the AI harder and to give you less health, but to open up the game space within each level. Down in the Bone Horde, which is the third mission of Thief the Dark
mission.
I love that mission. Down in the Bone Horde.
Most Thief fans would agree, I think.
I played down in the Bone Horde. At the first couple of levels, I thought, I'm not sure if I can love this as much as Thief 2. And then Down in the Bone Horde happened, and I was like, okay, I'm in. I love it. That mission has such variety to it if you crank up the difficulty to maximum compared to if you play it on normal, which is the easiest difficulty. So there's things about Thief which were new and fresh and interesting and still continue to be, and its sound design is still so good. It out-sound designed games that were made 20 years later. It's an achievement. I say that not as a fan, but as an objective truth. Thief's sound design still outclasses a lot of what I see.
Yeah. I think that's a great conclusion of the idea, and I think there's one thing more, because they gave us a universe that you can still expand. Where there's this city, and it's just the city, and there's so many characters already given, and all the different parties like Hammerites and mechanists and pagans and so on, and that there can be endless stories to be told in that city. And I think that also made it so appealing to create new ideas and stories within that environment. And that's also a plus. But the rest you said, I think, is totally true, especially with the PC thing. And the Looking Glass Peak. I totally agree with that. And I think it was a charming description of our community.
They are very good. I think the fact that Dishonored exists is testament to how good Thief is.
Yep.
You know, without Thief, there is no Dishonored. And Dishonored, for me, is one of the best games that came out of the 2010s. It's best
First
series.
one, I would agree, yeah.
It's very good. Don't get me wrong, there are things about it that I can point out which I'm not a fan of. Most of them narrative wise. One of the questions someone asked me, I remember, was what's your favorite moment in Thief and what's your favorite moment in stealth games generally?
Ah, right. Oh, let's come to that. Right, totally forgot.
Because Dishonored was one of the answers to those was going to come from Dishonored, specifically Dishonored 2. One of the best moments I've had in stealth games recently. It's a level in Dishonored 2 called A Crack in the Slab, where you are infiltrating a mansion which is in disrepair, and you get this little gadget. Your powers are taken away from you, so your normal tools of stealth and infiltration are disabled, but you get this little gadget, which is a timepiece. And this timepiece, you activate it, and you go back into the mansion's past. And there are guards, and everything looks pristine. And it was this moment where I realized that you could time hop between the present and the past at any location, pretty much, in the mansion level. And it was just like, oh, this is amazing.
The level design on Dishonored 2 in some places, was it the inventor's house where you can change the environment and everything you build differently as soon as you push the lever?
The Clockwork Mansion gets a lot of praise, and deservedly so. It is a phenomenal mission, but for me, the standout mission in Dishonored 2 is A Crack in the Slab.
Yeah, that was amazing. I remember that they have such an impressive level designs and ideas. Actually, I think that Arcane Studios are one of the most creative studios that are out there at the moment. I know you will. Yeah, there are others, but let's say for AAA gaming.
Yes,
and that's the problem. I think they have the Looking Glass problem. They are so creative, but it's not appealing to the masses.
I don't know. I mean, there's. I mean, you could looking at how I was thinking about how in Dishonored 2 you have that mission where you're going backwards and forwards in time, and it came out in 2016? I think it came out in 2016. At the same time in 2016, Titanfall 2 came out. If you've played Titanfall 2, you might know that in the campaign there is a level where you can go backwards and forwards in time. in an area.
Yes, but in general, I would say, the work they put out, if you look at Dishonored, if you look at Prey, or the add-on with the moon, where everyone's like having a hard time getting into it, but when they finished it, they are like, it's one of the best gaming experience I had in a recent time. They really do some amazing work at Arcane.
Yes, they do. And I mean, it will be interesting to see how well their latest game, which is coming out soon, I think.
They have that one PlayStation exclusive thing, I know, but that is so totally under the radar of so many people. And I don't know what else is to come. Well,
Arcane have done and continue to do amazing work, and Dishonored 2 provided one of the highlights for me. In terms of, what's your really favorite stealth game moment in recent times?
I thought of it so hardly, and I don't know. The most favorite thing in stealth games for me always have been the guards in the Thief games, because they are always a highlight. But The one thing I loved was in Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. I played the demo, and then there was that sound meter at the. I think it was at the right in the hut. And what I loved it was that I was in a room and there was, I think, a loud generator or something like that. And then I figured out that if the environment is louder, I can be louder until the enemies can hear me. So I could run faster.
Yes.
And that was some moment where I was like, because I thought about this in Thief so many times, because they have those huge loud generators, but but the enemies will hear me anyways. It doesn't matter what's next to me. And this was a moment where I was like, whoa, that is amazing.
You have sound cover.
Yeah. And that was just, I don't know how hard it is to program. I think at that time when Splinter Cell Chaos Theory came out, it was easier than back in 1998. But that element, I loved it, and I would love to have that in Thief as well. But this moment was like, yeah, damn it, this is so realistic at one point and simple, but so effective. That was, I think, one of my most favorite stealth moments.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about the stealth thing, and like what because the mission design, what you described, it's not so stealth focused in my opinion, because it's a stealth game. But it was an amazing moment.
Well, you say that, but there are ways in which you can use the time hopping to be stealthy. So there's a
You're right.
there's a looking glass on the timepiece where you can see the other time zone, and you can sneak up behind a guard in the future and then zip to the past, knock them out, and then zip back to the future again before his buddies come to investigate. Like, it's so much fun.
Okay, then that was a stealth focused experience. Yeah,
absolutely. In terms of Thief's favorite moments, there was a moment in Thief. There's a mission in Thief 2 where you have to trace a courier through a forest.
Yeah.
And there's a
mission ever.
last section of that mission. There is. I don't want to get too spoilery, just in case people haven't.
I don't think that in this community you can spoil the original games.
Well, I'll still try and keep it vague. But there's an enemy in that last section, and you hear them. And you're just like, there was a moment where I approached, and I was like, "Is that a thing? Is that an enemy?" And it moved, and I nearly shit myself. It was incredible to sort.
Come on, let's be obvious. You mean the tree beast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like those, I was terrified.
I know.
I ran like crazy to sort of, and it was and this was at the stage where we were playing through the whole thing without saving anything, right? So these things were chasing me, and I was running to try and find the courier's body, and I found the courier's body just as these things caught up. So the mission ended, and I sat back in my chair, like cold sweat on my forehead, like, oh my god,
so intensive, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're talking about favorite Thief moments, then I think I have to say, because the guards are like everywhere, but that one moment, yes, the cradle, I think, in Thief Deadly Shadows, of course, is one of the most remarkable missions in the series, and but the moment when you enter I think it was the sleeping room upstairs, and when the girl talks to you. And I think there was the silhouette of her or something like that, if I remembered correctly. But that moment was so amazing.
Yeah, that gave me a jump scare.
Yeah, no, and it was not a jump scare for me, but it was so effective, like so mysterious and creepy, and at the same time, the girl didn't want to harm you. She was on your side, or you are on her, or whatever. Yeah, but the whole mission is somehow really amazing as soon as the things come to life, and great.
There are little points in Thief Deadly Shadows where I'm just like, and that mission is one of them. The Cradle is a fantastic mission.
Cradle, or the lighthouse where you are at this captain's house, and there's his depressed, or yeah, she has even worse
She's
problems.
grieving widow.
Yeah,
And
that was amazing, and the music in that mission, it made you feel really sad, and
yeah,
to pull something like that off without being having like a really like a cutscene, with real actors that are crying or whatever. You felt for her,
yeah, absolutely. And
Just
I should actually say, to this day, I will only play that mission on medium difficulty. I think because I don't want to steal her gold. I think to get above the 90% loot threshold, you have to steal
maybe.
the gold that she's been left by her husband. So I will deliberately play the game on medium on that mission only, just so that I don't have to steal her the money that she needs to survive.
Yeah, but you robbed the place in general. Yes, that's okay.
The place in general, like there's nothing stopping.
Isn't everything in there hers?
Yes, but she doesn't need it to survive.
Okay, so you know you know how much money she had just right next to her.
I know that the game tells you she does, like, it's a note that you get if you read
Yeah?
a journal or something in the level. It says the widow needs the gold to survive. She doesn't need the book that you're after. So you can
Yeah, you're right.
you can leave the gold alone and just get the book, the thing that you're there for, and then you can leave. And that's always what I will try and do.
Yeah, but yeah, that those two missions in Thief Deadly Shadows were pretty amazing. Yeah, but there are so many moments in Thief. We could talk about this, but yeah, I think now we should come to an end.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think we covered so much. Was very, very interesting. Actually, your channel and this talk now, they gave me a very different view on stealth games.
Excellent. I've achieved my aim in coming on here.
Yeah, I don't like stealth games anymore now. It's no, it's actually very interesting, like all the different ideas and how you argument, and I like the way you look at them. From a very, let's say, far away. You very analytic. You analyze stealth games. So thanks for joining us and doing this with me, and especially that it was like a week ago when we talked first time or something like that.
It's been a genuine pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Always happy about Thief or anything stealth based at all in general. So it's been nice to sort of have someone who really knows Thief to converse with, because to be honest, I haven't had many Thief oriented conversations lately.
Yeah, it's hard to find those people. That's why we need the internet, and that's why I have this podcast.
It's a good listen. It really is.
So, is there anything you want to say at the end that's on your heart, on your mind?
That I said it earlier when I said to your audience to get out there, try other stealth stuff. Doesn't have to be Assassin's Creed, but try other stuff.
That's the stealth game, so that's why. But
try other stuff. I should also shout out, if no one has yet heard of it, there is a game coming out called Gloomwood, which is built by the guys who made Dusk. It's heavily influenced by Thief. It is not Thief, so don't go into it expecting Thief, like to come back full-throated. It's inspired by Thief, but definitely keep an eye out for that one in the near future if you're interested in sort of old school immersive stealth gameplay. Definitely.
Yeah, the thing is that there are people that are working there in the community, and it's Gloomwood is very well anticipated in the community and well known. And yeah, there's some direct contact between some developers and some of us, and yeah, but yeah, we are waiting for that. And yeah, as I said, thank you for opening my eyes and mind about stealth games. and hopefully we could do that to maybe some other listeners. And yeah, maybe there will be an occasion where we come together again. Maybe the Siege and the Sandfox talk, that could be interesting. Maybe this convinces me to 2D stealth games, because it looks really, really interesting. I will put a link to the trailer, teaser, or whatever in the description. So, and I hope maybe some Stealth Doc fans also like the discussion.
Oh, hopefully.
Everyone. Yeah.
We'll see. Talking
Alex, it was a pleasure. Yeah, as I said, thank you for doing this, and thanks for listening, Taffers and Stealth Dockers, and hope to see or hear you next time.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, seems quiet enough now. Okay, then.